First of all, I want to just say, like I said, say hi. It's awesome to be here. It's great. And I'm super excited to continue our series. But one of the things I kind of want to talk about real quick is kind of how difficult some people can be. I know it's a weird thing, but if you ever run into that person that's like, hey, I really want to help you, but you're kind of difficult to serve. I know if you've ever worked retail, food service, hospitality, anything, you have run into hundreds and hundreds of people, and some of them are like the easiest people to serve in the world. Like I just had this one lady that popped in my head. I remember telling her that, hey, if you buy the 2-pack instead of 2 individuals, you'd save $5. And she acted like I had saved her $1 million. Like, she called our corporate office and thanked them for my service. I was like, yeah, dude, people like that are fantastic. I can serve those people all day. And then there's some that aren't. Like, there's some people that just are kind of a little surly, and it's a little difficult. There's one I vividly remember. I used to work at this, it was a high-end, small boutique home theater retailer. And what I normally during the day, because I mean, who's going to shop for a 75-inch TV randomly on a Tuesday at like 2 o'clock? No one. So what I would do is I was taking online classes for my master's. I would sit there all day, do my schoolwork, and when someone popped in, studying kind of monotonous, someone would come in. I'd be super excited to see them. I'd pop up. I'd go greet them. I mean, it's cool. Yes. Can't wait to help you. So there was one of these. He comes in. I go, hey, how you doing? And he goes, I know more than you. Don't try to sell me anything. Bring me the remote for this television. Okay, yes. So I go, I grab the remote. I'm like, hey, you need anything else? Like, want a water, anything? You're good. Okay, cool. So I go sit down. I'm like, all right, I'm going to keep an eye on him. Make sure if he needs something, I can help him. So he starts mashing buttons. And he's touching the TV. Like, first of all, I got to clean that when you touch you get fingerprints on my display. He's hitting all these buttons. I'm like, hey, dude, what are you doing? He goes, I know if you enter the service menu, you can make the TV look better. So I'm doing that. Okay, cool. That is true, actually. A service menu on TVs, and they've changed this a lot recently, but basically it was a technician's menu, so if your TV broke, they could go in and fix it. It's like safe mode on your computer. But one of the things you could also do in that menu is you could turn off a lot of the like energy features. So like all these TVs have that little Energy Star certification. Well, you can like make your TV like hyper perform, basically. It's like taking off the governor of a car, or taking off safety features from your car. It's the same idea there. They're features. And if you get into the service menu, you can take it off. Okay, cool. Hey, buddy, you're right, but here's also the deal. If you access that menu, what's going to happen is as soon as you exit the menu, every 30 minutes, it's going to flash on the screen that you accessed that menu, unless you have a technician's code to get out of it. Good news for you, man. I've got one of those tech codes because I'm certified. I'll gladly do it for you. So he buys the TV because I've done everything he wants. I safely get out of that menu so my TV's not flashing all the time. And I think that's the end of it. He gets delivery. All right, guy was kind of a mean person. Whatever, done. Boss calls 3 days later. Hey, we just got like a really bad complaint about you. Oh, really? So they're thinking, it is like the middle of August. You make a sale a week. I know exactly who complained about me. Like, oh, really? Yeah, he said you were rude, condescending. You made him feel like inferior. Like, he's the one that told me he knows more than me. Come on. And like, again, if you work retail or hospitality, food service, you get complained about. You can be the best server in the world. You're gonna get a complaint at some point. So you just let it roll off your back. You're like, all right, cool, not a big deal. Let's fast forward 3 more days. Phone goes off in the store. I pick up, hey, thank you, this is Brian. How can I help you? My TV won't work. I look at the caller ID. A little smile starts going across my face. I go, "What's wrong, sir?" It's this guy who's complained about me. He goes, "Every 30 minutes it flashes on the screen that an unauthorized source accessed the service menu." He did exactly what I warned him not to do. So I was like, "Oh man, that's rough. Please hold." So I put him on hold, and like now the little smile is a big smile. I'm like, "Man, he's getting his comeuppance. This is great." I'm gonna keep him on hold for like 15 minutes, and then I'm gonna tell him that I can't get out there for 3 weeks, and then I'm gonna charge him like $100 to go out there, and all this is fantastic. Then I started listening to that nice, still, calm voice that resides in me. It just said, "Hey, serve them." So I picked up the phone and I told him, "Hey, I know exactly what the issue is. I'll be out there tomorrow at 10. He goes, "Oh, okay." He never thanked me. He didn't even tip me. But I served him. And it wasn't the most fun. Sometimes it's difficult to serve. But when we understand who we truly are with Christ and Christ with us, it becomes a lot easier. It actually becomes the natural response because Christ is the epitome of service. It's the same spirit that he served with that we serve with. So let's pray. God, we just thank you for this beautiful day that we get to be back here at Kettle Run. Thank you for dwelling with us, dwelling in us, being our God. I pray today that your message is received by everyone hearing it, that you use me as the messenger, that the words you want spoken to your people are clear. And I just pray that we learn more about our identity as believers. I pray if there's someone here that doesn't know the new identity given to those who trust you, or someone listening who doesn't even know you, I pray today they get to know you. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. You ever watch a TV show for like a million times, and then like you get to the point that you can recite the next line? Like, yeah, yes, like many people my age, mine's The Office. The first only like 5 seasons. But I can flat out tell you what's going to happen next. You get to a point with the show, you stop kind of paying attention. It becomes background noise because you know it so well. And then there's that time you notice that little detail that you never noticed before. Actually, in The Office, there is one. If any of you know the show, there's an open where Dwight is on a yoga ball, and Jim pops the yoga ball. Well, what you don't notice is everyone in the background losing it. Next time, go watch. You'll see people just go like this, like they cover their face because they're trying not to laugh, because apparently that was an accident. He was supposed to just prick it and the ball like slowly deflate, but instead what we see is the ball explode and like Dwight smacks his head, and it's hilarious. It's a little detail. It makes absolutely no difference to the story, but sometimes little details do. Sometimes you catch a little detail in that, and like, oh my gosh, that changes everything. And it's a huge deal. I've learned as I've read God's word, sometimes you pick up these little details that you miss, even though you read it a ton of times. One of those for me is in the Gospels. It's the story of the Last Supper. It's shown in all the Gospels. And I've read that story a lot. And so it's the story of the night before the arrest of Jesus. It's a celebration of the Passover. Jesus invites all the disciples to dinner. He serves them. He teaches them. He loves them. He instructs them. And it's a story that, we read. But there's a detail in there that I never quite realized. So we're going to start with it. It's in Matthew 26. It's verses 17 through 20. It says, "Now on the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus saying, 'Where will you have us prepare for you to eat the Passover?' He said, 'Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, the teacher says, my time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at your house with my disciples.' And the disciples did as Jesus directed them, and they prepared the Passover. When it was evening, he reclined at the table with the 12. All right, so Jesus is getting together for the Passover meal. This is a big celebration. I mean, think like Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving. Who do you guys eat that meal with? I mean, normally people you love, like, or family or somebody. You don't normally eat that meal with some guy you hate. Just kind of weird. So Jesus is going to invite people he likes. He invites the 12 disciples. They're his boys. He's been spending years with them. So you've got, the big names. You've got Andrew, or not Andrew, sorry. So you got Peter, John, and James. And then you got Andrew. Andrew's the brother of Peter. And then we got Philip. We got Bartholomew, who's sometimes called Nathaniel. You got Thomas and Matthew and James the Lesser, because we got to differentiate him from the other James. So why not call him the Lesser? How would you feel if you were called the Lesser, by the way? Just saying, like, you go to heaven, you get to look back and you go, oh man, I'm the Lesser? Wow. Bryan, the Lesser. Brutal. Then you got Thaddeus. He's sometimes called Jude. And you got this guy Simon. And then you have Judas Iscariot. You got this guy Judas. So Jesus is having a celebration dinner with Judas too. And why is this a big deal? Well, right before the start of the story of the Passover, we see this. Then one of the 12, whose name was Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What will you give me if I deliver him over to you?" And they paid him 30 pieces of silver, and from that moment, he sought an opportunity to betray him. All right, so Judas goes to dinner with the guy he's going to betray. Jesus invites to dinner the guy betraying him. We've read the story, or if you've read the story, I think it's a common thing. Judas was there. Okay, Judas was there. Cool. That's not the little detail, though. What gets me is what happens at that dinner. In the story that's told in John, it starts this way. It says, during supper, when the devil had already put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him. So we've already got Judas is going to betray Jesus. He's going to do it. During this meal, Jesus, knowing the Father, had given all things into his hands and that he had come from God and was going back to God, rose from supper. He laid aside his outer garments and taking a towel tied around his waist. And then he poured water into a basin and began washing the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. So cultural context, Jesus is going to wash the disciples' feet because it was kind of necessary. When they sat down at dinner, they sat in kind of a reclined position. They didn't really have chairs. They sat on the ground. So near the food would be feet. Well, feet need to be washed, especially then. If they had shoes, they were sandals. They would be walking in dust and dung, and it was, sanitary to have your feet washed. And just like, we wash our hands, they need to do that as well. They don't eat with their feet, but it's still sitting right there. And normally, either you'd wash your own feet or you'd have someone do it for you. But that was done in status level. If you were the top of the status rung, your servants washed your feet. Then your servants also washed the feet of everyone else there. That was a low task. That was bottom of the barrel task-wise. The master of the house never washed another person's feet. That just wasn't done. But Jesus did. It's such a thankless but meaningful way to serve someone. And Jesus does it. And see, and whose feet does he wash? Well, if we read the next few verses, you see that Peter's like, oh my gosh, you can't wash my feet. And we think about Peter getting his feet washed. And we turn our focus to Peter. But there is 12 people there outside of Jesus. It doesn't say he skipped one. Think how intimate that is. Think how intimate it is to be washing someone's feet. How big of an act of service that is. how almost uncomfortable it has to be if you're having your feet washed by someone you see as superior to you. And he did it for all of them. That means the guy that betrayed him, Jesus washed his feet. There's no complaint from Jesus. He just does it. Jesus serves Judas. But there's more. As the dinner continues, it says, now as they were eating, Jesus took bread, and after blessing, broke it, and gave it to the disciples, and said, take, eat, this is my body. And he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, drink it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for forgiveness of sins. I tell you, will not drink again of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. So as they're eating dinner, Jesus serves his disciples again. He explains a new covenant. He offers it to his disciples. This is during dinner. That means Jesus has not only made sure that the people there are eating, he is serving them more. He is giving them bread. He is giving them wine. And it says his disciples. It doesn't list 11. It's an all-inclusive term. So who's there? Judas is there. Guys, Judas ate too. Judas got served a plate too. I mean, how many of you would take the guy that's going to stab you in the back as he's sitting there and go, hey man, here's a plate of Thanksgiving dinner? That's crazy. But Judas ate too. Jesus doesn't ignore him. He doesn't banish him. He points out, you're going to betray me. But he still served Judas. All right, so why is this a big deal? Well, it's a big deal because we'll start here. In 2 Corinthians 13:5, Paul says, or he asks the Corinthian believer a question. He says, or do you not realize about yourself that Jesus Christ is in you? Jesus Christ is in you. And sometimes we kind of gloss over that phrase, or we put it in our own way, like, oh, maybe this is poetic or metaphorical. No, Paul's not being poetic or metaphorical here. Christ is not merely an outsider. He's not an outside help. He's not just there when we need him. He literally dwells in us. He is living in us. He is with us at all times. He is interwoven into the fibers of our being. So that means the God that washed the feet of the guy that's going to betray him, the God that served him a meal, is the same God that lives in you. The same God. The selfless, sacrificial servant lives in you. This is your identity. This is who you are. And guys, this is huge. You don't need to change anything about you. You just need to understand who you are. You have indwelling in you the exact same servant that made Judas a meal. I mean, if this is living in you, you can serve your family, your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, your enemies. It's as simple as that. So what does this look like practically? What does it look like to live out the holy servant that we are? Well, there's a couple things that Jesus does very consistently that show exactly who we are too. Number one, Jesus met needs. Every time before Jesus proclaims the gospel, he meets needs. And he meets them in different ways. We're people. We have needs, right? We all have a need at some point. Maybe you need a meal. Maybe you need help with something. Maybe you need someone to pick something up for you. We have needs. I love the story of Zacchaeus because he meets a need before he proclaims the gospel to him. In Luke 19, it starts with Jesus walking through Jericho. And it says, "And behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was the chief tax collector and was rich. And he was seeking to see who Jesus was. But on the account of the crowd, he could not, because he was small in stature. So he ran on ahead and climbed up a sycamore tree to see him, for he was about to pass that way." So here you have Zacchaeus. And this guy is not a popular dude. Like, he's rich, so there's some jealousy. He's a tax collector. No one likes the tax collector. So most likely, he has no friends, and people resent him. This is not someone you go, "Hey, I'm going to get dinner with you." Right? He's that person that comes off maybe as slightly annoying, the one you perceive as a little weird, the one that maybe most people don't want to be around. That's Zacchaeus. And what was his need? Dude needed a friend. The guy just needed a friend. So what does Jesus do? It says, "And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said, 'Zacchaeus, hurry down, for I must stay at your house today.' So he hurried and came down and received him joyfully. And when they saw it, they all grumbled, 'He has gone into be the guest of a man who is a sinner.'" It's such a simple act of service. He walks up to Zacchaeus and goes, "Dude, I am coming to your house today. We're going to be together today. We're going to hang out. I am excited." Zacchaeus is excited. And everyone else is like, "Oh, why would Jesus do that?" And you know how much Jesus cared about that? Nothing. Zero. He didn't care. Jesus went and met his need. And guys, meeting a need can be simple. It can be getting together for a meal with someone. It can be bringing a meal to someone. It could be shoveling snow for a neighbor, taking out trash for your spouse, doing the dishes, hold the door open, and give a word of encouragement. Guys, this doesn't have to be something massive. This is simply putting someone else's needs above your own. It's a simple act of service. Jesus didn't perform a massive miracle here. He didn't. This isn't the feeding 5,000. Jesus didn't walk on water here. He simply said, "You need a friend. Here I am." Jesus met the need of a guy that no one liked by having dinner with him. He met the need of the one betraying him by making sure Judas had a meal too. So number one of displaying the holy servant that is in us, meet a need. Number two, value people over time. I don't know if you're like me, I worry about time all the time. Like, I'm a very regimented person. I hate being late. Like, nothing gets me more stressed out, more like angry, more just than being late. I hate it. I'm the type of guy that if you have a party at 6 o'clock, I'm walking through the door probably at 5:55, and I've been circling the blocks for 10 minutes. Unless Jackie's with me. Then we're there at 6:15. She believes in fashionably late. I don't. So I've started she's watching, so she's definitely gonna laugh at me. I've started telling her when we need to leave. Like if we have to leave at 5:30, I definitely say we have to leave at 5:20. And she knows it now, and she lovingly plays into it. So I do appreciate her doing that. But really, is it important for me to be on time? No, it's not important at all. Yes, I had ingrained in me that 5 minutes early is on time is late, and late is forgotten. But I don't need to really be on time everywhere. I don't need to stress about it. I don't need to go insane worrying about it. There are more important things sometimes. And Jesus shows that in Mark 5. It shows us take a step back when we need to serve someone. his people are more important than our time. In Mark 5:21-24, it says, "And when Jesus crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered about him, and he was beside the sea. Then came out one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and seeing him, he fell at his feet and implored him earnestly, saying, 'My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her so she may be made well and live.' And he went with him, and a great crowd followed him and thronged about him." So you have Jesus. At this point, he has crossed the Sea of Galilee once. He drove out some demons. He crossed the Sea of Galilee again. This isn't a simple trip. It is crossing a sea. He is probably exhausted, and he's on his way to work. And when you boil it down, Jesus is on his way to go do his job. Now, it's a little different. His job is miraculous healing. Our job might be, going to a meeting. But we have some similarity there. Sometimes we're on our way to work. And then something happens. So he's on his way to do his job, and something happens. And it says, "And there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years, and who had suffered much under many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was no better, but grew worse. She had heard the reports about Jesus, and came up behind him in the crowd, and touched his garment. For she said, 'If I touch even his garments, I will be made well.' And immediately the flow of blood dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. And Jesus, perceiving in himself that power had gone out from him, immediately turned about in the crowd and said, 'Who touched my garments?' His disciples said to him, 'You see the crowd pressing around you, and yet you say, "Who touched me?" And he looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling, and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, 'Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease.'" I think normally when we talk about this passage, we talked about the faith of the woman or how horrible the disease was. But let's kind of try to think about Jesus for a second. I mean, maybe he's in a hurry. Someone's dying, but maybe he's in a hurry. He might be exhausted. He's already driven out demons today and crossed the sea twice. Massive crowd following him. I mean, maybe that's taking a toll on him. We see throughout the Bible, after him being in the crowds, he goes and retreats by himself. So I don't know how Jesus is, but Jesus could have easily kept going. Like, he's about to do something amazing. A ton of people around him. He could have ignored the lady. I mean, none of us here would have any clue he ignored her, right? Would anyone there had known if he ignored her? No one would have known. No one. Wouldn't have been a big deal. We'd be missing a couple verses. But that's it. But he stops. Jesus stops, meets her needs, shares the gospel. How cool is that? And you know what? This God of all creation that stopped and helped this woman because he didn't care about being late, guess what? He was late. He ended up being late. The girl dies. The girl he's off to heal dies. But by prioritizing people over time, by prioritizing love, prioritizing service, he gives God an opportunity to do something even more amazing. And you know what happens? Something more grand does happen. The little girl that dies is raised from the dead. He valued the person over the time it took. He valued the woman that stopped him. He valued Judas over the time it would take to serve him. He valued Judas so much that in his last moments, he's about to die. He serves him a meal and tells him about the gospel. So ways to display the Holy Spirit in us: number one, meet a need. Number two, value people over time. And the third one, guys, be generous. I love in Matthew 5:38 through 42, it says, "You have heard it that it was said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. But if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn him the other also. And if anyone would sue you and take your tunic, let him have your cloak as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Give to the one who begs from you, and do not refuse the one who would borrow from you." I love this. Jesus starts here by quoting the law, an eye for an eye. An eye for an eye actually seems fair. It's the idea, get what you give what you get. If someone takes from you, take from them, get yours. Make sure that it's even. But Jesus explains how life with him, life in him, is different. It's the turn the other cheek. If someone needs a shirt, you give it to them and you give them your jacket too. When you give abundantly. If someone asks for something, meet the need if you can. Go the extra mile, literally. Why not? See, life in Christ says be over the top. Be over the top generous. Because really, guys, what is so important to be holding on to that you can't be over the top generous? What is so big that you can't do that? What's stopping you from being who you are? Well, there's an answer. It's an improper perspective to who you are. The reason this is difficult is sometimes we forget who we are. When you remember you have things, you have talents to give generously, it becomes a lot easier. So who are you? Who are you? Well, you meet needs of people. You value people over time. You are generous. You made sure Judas eats too. This is not behavior modification. This isn't the 3 steps to being perfect. This is who you are. The same God that met the need of Zacchaeus, the same God that stopped what he was doing to help the lady, the same God that says, go over the top, give abundantly. If you want to slap me, I'll give you the other cheek. You can slap the other side. The same God that made sure Judas's feet were washed and he had a meal is the same God that resides in you. You are that servant. That's you. That's cool. Well, so how do we do this? We find our starting point. Our starting point is Christ in us. The starting is the love of God living inside of us, because that is who we are. So when it's not fun to serve, so when it's hard, when the person's rude, when the person's ungrateful, when they call your boss and complain and try to get you in trouble, even though you warned them, you remember who you are and let love compel you to serve them. Because remember, you were Judas once too. Let's pray. God, we just thank you for this beautiful day. We thank you for the fact that you loved us so much, that you wanted to serve us so much, that you gave everything, that we were once enemies of you. We were Judas, but you served us on the cross by giving your life. God, I pray that we look at who we are. We are that servant, and we go out and we serve this community. We serve our family. We serve our friends. We serve everyone around us. And it doesn't matter if we like them or not. We love them. We're compelled by love to serve them. God, we just thank you so much for this amazing day and the fact that we also get the privilege of serving you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.